Welcome to section 3.4. This is the 29th session of the ISACA CISA exam prep series. In this session, we'll cover application controls. We'll answer several questions. What are application controls and what do they guard? How do you control data going into a system? How do you keep processing accurate? How do you protect the data files themselves? And how do you control what comes out? Why does this matter beyond the exam? Because these controls are where data integrity is won or lost. Picture a payroll system at a large hospital. A bad input gets in and someone is paid the wrong amount. A processing flaw and totals silently drift off. When you can spot weak controls here, you protect real money. And you make sure the numbers management trusts are actually right. What are application controls and what do they guard? They're the controls over input, processing, and output. They make sure only valid data get entered and updated. They confirm processing does the right task. And they check that results meet expectations. Together they deliver accuracy, completeness, and validity. One important habit: pair automated controls with manual follow-up on exceptions. A control that flags an error only helps if someone acts on it. How do you control data going into a system? Input controls make sure every transaction is entered once, completely. Only valid, authorized data should get through. And here's a point people miss. When one system feeds another, the receiver must recheck the data. Don't assume the upstream system got it right. So how do you authorize input? Authorization confirms management approved the transactions. There are several ways to do it. Signatures on source documents prove approval. Online access controls limit who can act. Unique passwords give accountability for each change. Terminal identification ties input to specific workstations. Well-designed source documents capture data cleanly. And input validation checks the format before accepting it. Some accountability controls back all this up. Separation of duties keeps one person from owning the whole flow. Activity reports show who did what and when. And violation reports flag failed access attempts for review. How do you control data entered in bulk? That's the job of batch controls. You group transactions and compute control totals. You can total the monetary value to check the amounts. You can count items or count documents. Or you can use a hash total. That sums a field with no real meaning, like account numbers. If the totals don't match, something is missing or wrong. But totals alone aren't enough. You need follow-up to investigate and correct the differences. And controls over resubmitting rejected items. What happens when input has errors? You need a deliberate way to handle them. You have a few options. Reject only the bad transactions and process the rest. Reject the whole batch for correction. Hold the batch in suspense pending a fix. Or accept it and flag the errors for later. Several techniques support this. Transaction logs record every update. Error correction procedures log, fix, and reapprove. And cancelling source documents stops duplicate entry. Input sanitization also blocks malicious code injection. How do you keep processing accurate? Validate and edit data as close to its origin as possible. Edit controls are preventive, running before data are processed. There's a whole family of validation edits. Let me give you the flavor with a few. A limit check stops a value above a set ceiling. A range check keeps a value inside a band. A validity check accepts only predefined codes. A reasonableness check flags unusual quantities. A check digit catches transposed or altered numbers. A completeness check rejects blank required fields. And a duplicate check stops the same record entering twice. If a supervisor overrides an edit, log it, and have a different manager review that log. Then there are processing controls for accumulated data. Run-to-run totals confirm data carried correctly between stages. Manual recalculations spot-check a sample. Reconciliations of file totals run on a routine basis. And exception reports surface transactions that look wrong. How do you protect the data files themselves? File controls make sure only authorized processing touches stored data. Different data deserve different care. System parameters change how the system behaves, so control them like code. Standing data, like customer records, need approval before changes. Balance data needs strict approval and audit trails. And transaction files rely on validation and control totals. Several mechanisms help. Before and after images trace a transaction's impact. Proper labeling ensures the right file is loaded. Version control ensures the current file is used. And parity checking catches transmission errors. Now here's a critical warning. Your application controls only matter if the database is protected. If someone updates data directly in the backend, controls are bypassed. Sometimes that's necessary, say after an outage. But direct fixes must be authorized and processed under control. Your controls are only as strong as the grip on those back-end fixes. How do you control what comes out? Output controls make sure data reach users correctly and securely. Log and secure sensitive or negotiable forms. Control the computer generation of instruments and signatures. Check that reports are accurate, complete, and on time. Remember, even good data can produce a misleading report. So validate reports, especially custom ones. Control distribution so only the right people receive output. Balance and reconcile output to control totals. Handle output errors promptly with the originating department. Follow a retention schedule that meets legal rules, and have recipients sign for sensitive reports. So let's bring it together. Application controls span input, processing, and output. Input controls keep only valid, authorized data flowing in. Processing edits catch errors before they spread. File controls and audit trails protect stored data. And output controls keep results accurate and secure. Watch back-end fixes because they can undo all the rest. The MCQs covering all the topics and concepts from this session are available on RooCloud.com. Practice the chapter-specific MCQs before moving on to the next session. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or feedback, post a comment below or email us. I will see you in the next session.